So you have a community of guys you gather with regularly.
Right.
You just keep it at service level. You keep it at cars. Okay, how do you then take that next step? And in the same way as everything else, we build trust slowly. We build trust over time. And this goes for relationships. This goes for how did you date somebody, right? It starts simply. You don't share everything on the first date. That scares people. You start
It's
slowly.
only going to be one date if you do that.
Right. You start sharing a little bit more, and they reciprocate, right? And if they don't reciprocate, if they're not willing to go there with you, okay, maybe that's the way you evaluate that they might not be the right person.
Most men have people in their lives, but few have what can truly be regarded as brotherhood. The kind of guy who is there when a marriage falls apart, the deployment orders arrive, or the 2 a.m. crisis hits. Today, Rob Stout is talking with Pastor Matt Winter at Missionhills in Littleton, Colorado. Matt and his team are coaching men on how to carefully choose and cultivate healthy brotherhood relationships. The Next Stage Podcast for Men is a bi-weekly audio and video podcast helping a man live a life of purpose, born out of his identity as a man created in God's image. For more information about Rob Stout, the Next Stage Podcast, or Sherpa Unlimited, see the show notes or visit sherpaunlimited.com/podcast. Welcome to the Next Stage.
Men, welcome to the Next Stage Podcast. I'm so excited to be on location at Missionhillschurch in Denver, and excited to have our guest, Matt Winter, who is a men's pastor, works with groups and communities here at Mission Hills. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the Next Stage.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So these are some nice digs. Yeah. I got to say, it's really nice.
We do a good amount of video, and we got a space for it. It's really fun to be able to do good stuff.
It's really great. Yeah. So listen, let's dive right in. Most men act like they've got life together. They kind of have to. Culturally, I mean, we don't want to see a guy just, a mess all the time, but most men act like things are fine, things are good. They're kind of like that duck on the water. They look nice and calm on the surface, but underneath, things are going on. And in your work with men, can you give us an example of kind of what's really going on under the surface?
Yeah. So I find we have about 3 groups of guys. 3 types of guys that we find. 2 are coming forward, 1's not. Okay. But here's one that did recently. So this was just a couple weeks ago. A guy came forward and he just emailed me and said, "Hey, I could use some help. All I had was, life's kind of rough. I could use some help. Can we meet?" Great. This is part of normal what we do.
Right.
And so a few days later, I meet him out at our coffee shop, and we get some coffee. I could tell it's going to be a little rougher conversation, so we walk into my office where it's a little more private, and we sit down, coffee in hand. Okay, let's talk. Yeah. And meeting him initially, he's any one of 1,000 guys who walks through our lobby. Not that there wasn't anything unique about him, but
sure,
he seemed normal, right? Maybe a little jittery on this particular morning, but pretty normal guy. And so we sit down, and he starts telling me his story. And we go from broken homes, split up families, to marriage, kids, affairs on both sides of the relationship. And now we're looking at everything falling apart.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I leave in the next 72 hours to be overseas for the next 6 months on a work assignment.
And I need help.
Now. Right now.
Okay.
At that point, it's a very different approach.
Right.
All right. So, okay, let's connect you with somebody. Right. Let's talk through a plan of when you get where you're going. And at this point, he's not even sure, is my family coming with me or are they not? Because that's how bad it was. I don't even know what's happening in the next 72 hours. Is my family breaking up or not? That's the point we're at. We start digging in, and so we're triaging, right? That's all we're doing at this point. We're triaging. We're getting you something.
ER.
Yeah, this is an ER. Let's see, how bad is it? Okay, what can we do now? And that's all we could do at that point, right? It's been that bad. So we continue talking, and I get a little more history, trying to figure out exactly how we can help this guy. And come to find out, this isn't actually the beginning of the problems. This is just when we're finally coming forward. This has been going on for at least 2 or 3 years. Again, it was multiple affairs, both sides of the relationship. Things have been falling apart for a long time. And now, all of a sudden, we're asking for help. I kind of think of it like Noah. So imagine you're in Genesis 6, the world's falling apart, and God says, no, I want you to build an ark. Here's what I'm going to do. I've got an assignment for you. And Noah goes, great, sounds good. Let me gather all the wood. I'll get a bunch of nails, buckets of tar. I clearly don't know how boats are built. But I'll gather everything. We'll put it in a barn. And then we'll wait on it for 100 years. And the moment the first raindrop hits, then we start scrambling.
Then
right?
he needs a boat.
Japheth, where'd the nails go? Like, Ham, get a hammer. What's going on? Right. Grab that wood. Where'd those wood go? Right. And we start building then. At that point, what they need wasn't to build then.
Right.
We can salvage things at this point. But what actually needed to happen was building for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
So that when the storm hit, you already had what you needed.
That's exactly where we're heading. Yeah. And I love the fact that, I don't love the fact that you started with that story. Obviously, if you're with that guy, and obviously if you're in a situation working with men, that is okay, this is not just normal coffee. This is crisis. However, there is a hidden struggle that most men walk with. I mean, they walk with that. Why, in your experience, do men wait until things are at that crisis mode to reach out? This has been going on for years. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Why do men wait until they're in crisis to come running for help? And thank God he did. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
But why?
Yeah. Well, we could back up a little bit for a second. So he's one type of guy I see. Yeah. The other two are, there's another guy who asked for help, and then another guy that I think is kind of what we're talking about. And they all come forward in kind of different stages, different places. Okay. So that guy clearly knows he needs help, right? Yeah. And he's come forward. The other guy is the guy who hits kind of a new milestone, a new stage of life, right? So we see this often with, hey, I just finished college and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my career, or I've got young kids in the house now and I'm trying to figure out career and marriage and parenting all at the same time, or I'm an empty nester, I have adult kids now and I don't know what that relationship looks like. Yeah. Kind of hit that milestone and
season
go,
of life.
Season of life, those big milestones. You go, I don't actually know what the next phase of this looks like. And that's when they come forward. All right, so that's a little bit earlier in their relationship, right? Earlier in that stage. Hey, things haven't fallen apart yet. Right. Let's come forward. So those are the guys we interact with the most. It's the third guy that worries me the most, that I think is the most dangerous, and that's who we're talking about right now. It's the guy who just holds on. Things are falling apart under the surface. Yeah. They feel the pressure. They're in the new phase. They don't know what the road looks like ahead, and yet they just keep putting a smile on their face. Right. And some of us get so good at this that we can do it in any situation. I think one of the most extreme examples I ever saw was we had a guy whose his son had just passed away. And he continued to put on such a facade that even at his son's own funeral, he was greeting people with a smile on his face like they were coming to a party at his house because he couldn't drop the mask. He didn't know how. And things were clearly absolutely a disaster under the surface. And I think that comes from a couple different places. Some of that is natural. Some of that's our own sin. I mean, I do that just in normal life. Yeah. Imagine I think back to, I was at a wedding several years back. One of my good friends, we're at the wedding. We go to the rehearsal dinner. We go to rehearsal beforehand, dinner, and we're all heading out to the parking lot afterwards. And one of the bridesmaids comes running up to me and goes, Matt, I can't believe we're both in this wedding. I didn't know you were here. It's so good to see you. And I had no idea who this woman was. And so what did I do? I played it off.
Fantastic.
It's so great. I didn't know you were in this wedding. It's so good to see you. My car's over here. I'm going this way. It's so good to see you. I will see you at the wedding in 2 days. Sounds good. I'll see you then. Great. And I turned to a friend of mine at that moment and I went, hey, could you tell I have no idea who that is?
Who was that?
and to my, I don't know if it's to my credit, to my shame, they went, no, I had no idea. You acted like you totally knew who that was. I then figured out who it was. They'd actually counseled me for like 3 months, years before. And once I remembered who it was, I just didn't recognize her in the moment. Okay, now I actually do know who this was. That was a totally appropriate reaction from her. But my reaction was put up the facade, put up the face.
Right.
I can't let anybody know it's too embarrassing. Right, it's too shameful to not remember who this person is, and so my first reaction was to put up the mask and to pretend. And I think most of us are walking around the church lobby every Sunday doing exactly that.
And doing that at church is one thing. It's, but we do that everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and not to just talk about the church lobby. A lot of men who listen to this podcast are not church guys. So they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What we're talking about is being in an environment where you're there for community and for help, but you obviously can't do that around 2,000 people.
Right.
So where can you do that is the question.
Yeah.
So let me kind of get back to the question. Why is it that men ignore the problem until they're in crisis, regardless of which one of those three it is?
Yeah.
Why do you think they do that?
Yeah. I think there are a couple reasons. One is our normal fear. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have it together.
Yeah.
Some of it is the expectations around men particularly, and I think everybody does this. We all do this, but men are particularly prone. And we see this here at our church, the pressure around success, especially in the area that we live in. We're a very successful area around success, around keeping it together. This is part of what makes you who you're supposed to be.
Right.
Right? So we've got to keep that up. It's embarrassing to admit you don't know what you don't know. Right? Whether that's at home, whether that's at work, and everybody kind of acts like, yeah, you should know what the next step is. You should know what the next phase is. Right. And most of us haven't been taught, right? I have no idea what that next step is. I don't know what it looks like to pray, to read my Bible, to disciple my kids, to actually figure out how to grow a team at work. Nobody's ever actually showed me the ropes. But everybody kind of acts like I'm supposed to know. And so that's kind of the expectation. So I got to keep that. Otherwise, I'm a failure.
Right. And meanwhile, I'm running around with imposter syndrome. And I'll tell you what, our conversation before we recorded this was about my trip to Uganda. Same thing with men there. I think it's a universal. It's a universal that I've got to have it together. I have, and some of that comes out of, I think, a good place of like, I need to own where I'm at. I've been called to be fruitful and multiply. I've been called to, to be a man of impact.
To raise my kids.
Those are all good things.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But what happens? What's at stake if all of that stuff is ignored?
Yeah. The reality is, everything's at stake. So we see this largely on a cultural level. We see deteriorating families and debt and just bankruptcy and everything falling apart, broken families. I mean, more people grow up in broken families today than intact families. I have a friend here who grew up in a really healthy family. Right? Parents modeled this well, taught him what it looks like dad taught him what it looks like to be a man. At some point in college, he went to a counselor and met the counselor, told him his story. And after hearing everything, the counselor's response was, you have an abnormally healthy childhood. Health is abnormal at this point. Right? So we see this across the board societally. It's harder to see it personally in your own life, in your family. All right, so we can say, great, we can look at all the statistics, all the points, all the data, and go, yeah, everything's deteriorating, everything's falling apart. But when it comes to your own life, you go, well, I got through another day. I got through another season. And we know that sometimes life can be hard, and some of that's just normal, right? And we know we have to keep pushing, we have to keep persevering. Some of that's just normal life. And it's hard to know when we're actually overwhelmed and when we can actually handle it.
Yeah.
There's a hard distinction there. And when we don't have somebody else to bounce that off of, somebody close to go, yeah, I know you well, and I think you're just getting in your own way. Like that's the conversation we have. Honestly, we had this conversation a little bit running into the podcast. As I said, I'm pretty nervous. I don't feel like I'm up to par to be on this podcast with you. And that was me getting in my own way, getting in my own head.
Right.
And I talked to a couple friends, and they went, no, you're fine. You should be here. This is exactly where you should be.
Yeah.
This is the right place.
Well, and you reached out to
Yeah.
me, and to
Yeah.
your credit, you're like, listen, man, you've got CEOs and authors. And I'm like,
Right.
listen, man, you are a practitioner. You are, and when we jumped on a pre-call,
Yeah.
you were like, you led with the story. I just got out of this meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is why we want you here. Like to go, you're the guy. You're starting pitching. Right. I don't care. Don't care. Let's go. Right. You know. And so to talk to another man who's in the trenches, who knows what is at stake, and I would say, what's at stake is the death of the soul. Yeah. Because there's an isolation and a loneliness and a fake it till you make it, and guys go from literally cradle to grave in isolation, never knowing the joy and beauty of brotherhood, of community. Would be a word that's out there a lot, but it's brotherhood. And there's something unique with men in that. And so...
And we're craving it. We crave it all the time.
Yeah.
And we get in our own way.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we're heading next. Yeah. The reality, man, is that there's a lot going on underneath the surface of our lives. There's a lot going on. We are the duck on the water. You know, it looks nice and peaceful, but underneath, man, that duck is just, he's pedaling, dude. I think that's probably the way ducks function. But the reality, a lot of environments are like, just get around other men. Just go, go to a game, go out for a beer, go smoke a cigar, go hunt, go do IT, whatever you techies do. I don't know what you do. But just go do activity. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. We're going to take a quick break, and we're actually going to talk about when guy time just isn't enough and where to go next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This is Rob Stout, host of the Next Stage podcast. If you're like a lot of men I talk to, you're working hard. You're providing for your family, checking the boxes, and all of those things you're supposed to do, but you're still wondering, is this really what I'm here for? Is this all there is? Believe me, you're not alone. And honestly, that's not how it's supposed to be. I believe that every man is called to live with purpose, one that flows out of his identity, out of who he is, not just what he does. That's why I speak at churches, at men's groups, and business associations about how to live with purpose born out of identity so that you can lead, provide, and live with clarity and conviction. Here's my ask. Would you reach out to your pastor, your men's group leader, or your business association and tee up a conversation between me and that leader to invite me in to that group to speak about some of these critical issues? Because believe me, if you're asking these questions, every man around you is asking those as well. So together, let's equip men to step into who they are, who they were meant to be at work, at home, and in life. Because when a man finds his purpose, everything changes. So reach out to your pastor, your men's group leader, or your business association and simply connect them with me through an email. My email is thenextstage@sherpaunlimited.com. And as a thank you, I want to give you a signed copy of my book, Getting Even, Countering Life's Hard Knocks. Let's partner together. Reach out, connect me with that leader, and get your free book. Thank you. Welcome back to The Next Stage. We're with Matt Winter from missionhillschurch here in Denver. Super excited to have him as a guest. He is a practitioner of men's ministry and is in relationship, is growing as a young dad as well. And so he's a man who's in the trenches, and super excited to have him here. Matt, where I want to head next is some of the things you're doing around Mission Hills and where you're heading with men's gathering points and rallying, because getting men to show up to an event is kind of a trick in itself.
Yep.
But you guys are doing that. You're creating environments, not just program-driven stuff like we talked about, but environments where, and there's a reason for that because men can show up together. What are some of the things that you're doing in that area?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned program environments. We're creating spaces and environments for people to show up.
Right.
There's a pushback a lot of time against programming, and I think that's valid. I think it's super valid because we've overprogrammed the heck out of a lot of stuff, especially as we grow, as we get into mega churches and figure out what this looks like.
Right.
I think to do this well, programming, creating something is really just creating space for relationships.
Right.
And so that's the purpose of everything we do. So our overarching department from an organizational standpoint is we call it groups ministry.
Yeah.
It's groups. It's relationships.
Yeah.
And so like at Mission Hills within men's ministry, we do 6 things. We do a couple large events each year. We do a monthly gathering that's easy to drop into. We do weekly Bible studies in men's groups that actually talk about their lives. We have a more specific development program. We do one-on-one mentoring, and then we try to hit those same topics in a podcast. So those are the 6 things we do.
That's awesome.
And so each one of those is kind of a different level of engagement. So we start with things like you mentioned getting guys to show up at an event is kind of a trick in itself.
Yeah.
And here's what we felt like. If you put together an event and say, hey, we're going to sit around tables and talk the whole time.
We're going to handhold and sing Kumbaya.
We actually were
Come
recording.
on.
We were recording something one time, me and another guy on staff, for a new event we were doing. And Zach, our videographer, caught this comment. He goes, we're filming and he goes, it's going to be so exciting. We're going to get together. We're going to sit around tables.
Awesome.
That's not. Nobody wants to show up to that. That's not how you get guys to show up.
We're going to do quilting.
This is terrible.
And
this is not.
It's going to be
and it was
great.
just it kind of fell flat, and he caught it, and he goes, "Yep, that's not how you're going to advertise this. That's not what's happening here." And so we found this with some of our larger Sharpen events. So we do these ones twice a year, and we have a speaker, and we do dinner and a couple other things. And so we started trying to figure out what will get guys to show up. So we had a really fun idea a few years ago for our January event, because we need to be inside. Let's turn one of our lobbies into like an old school arcade. Right, so we get like fathers and sons together. We'll invite middle schoolers and high schoolers. We'll do some relationship building. So we actually rented a bunch of arcade games. We actually own a few too, so we added those in there. We have a guy who led one of our groups who had a side business doing pinball machines. So we brought a bunch of his pinball machines. We added lights and fog and like 80s music. It was sweet in there. It was really cool.
Looked like Dave and Buster's, huh?
Seriously.
Yeah.
With the fog and everything, it felt really old school. It was kind of dark and it was cool. You could hear the music, you could hear the games playing, and we had just under 200 guys show up. And we also did dinner as part of that. So we came through, they did a taco bar, and we knew guys want to talk and need to sit and eat dinner separately. And so we had kind of a separate room and tables. And so they'd go eat in there. And middle of the event, we looked around and went, there are like 200 guys at this event.
Right.
But we're in the arcade area going, there are 12 guys in here. Where did everybody go? And so we walk over where there's dinner, where there's tables, and we realized that there are 100 and almost 90 guys in that room, and there are like 12 guys playing video games.
It's very simple. Food trumps arcade
Yeah.
games any day of the week.
What we started to figure out, though, was it's more than food. It's relationships also
Yeah,
trump
it
video
is.
games.
Yes.
And so we started looking back at that point and went, okay, what other events have we done and how have they gone? We started looking back and go, at these big events where we go, we've tried different things. We brought in like an archery dodgeball team. We've had axe throwing. Like we've done all the things. We did a car show. And the most popular activity every single time, hands down, is sitting around tables talking with other men.
Right.
We really are craving relationship.
Yeah.
Now, if we say, hey, we're going to have a cool event, we're all going to sit around tables, nobody shows up to that.
Well, of course not.
But that is what we need.
Right.
It's what we need. It's what we want.
Well, what is needed is coming out of the mass. You
Yeah.
mentioned the lobby,
Yeah.
but it's coming out of the mass of humanity
Yeah.
and getting into smaller communities, that band of brother mindset.
Yeah.
You know, the where is relationship happening? Where is there another guy who can look me in the eye and go, hey, just had a birthday party for your 3-year-old or your 7-year-old. How's that going? How is it being being a dad? How is it being a single dad? Share that with me. Having another man who knows how to open that up.
Yeah.
A, they're rare.
Yeah.
But B, to have another guy who just initiates. We're really scared little boys who are like, I don't want to be known. I don't want to be picked last. I don't want to be left out. Like those same guys that were picked last for kickball or whatever when we were in elementary school. Man, we're the same guys. And to have another man just help us talk. Tell me about what you're doing at work. How are things going? That begins to open up other things.
Yeah.
So how do you then help guys go from showing up to opening up and moving into some of those deeper environments?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So the way we try to do that, it's something like a few years ago, we realized we went from these big Sharpen events to like the next level of engaging with other men was weekly committed Bible studies. We're like, well, that's a pretty big gap between twice a year events with a couple hundred guys and
a big
weekly
jump.
Bible studies. All right, what do we put in the middle here? So we call it the men's gathering. We do it every month, and it's an old school men's breakfast. We just do it on a Monday night, right?
Sure.
This is what this is.
Hopefully barbecue.
As depending on the day, we've done Chinese food, we've done barbecue, we've done pizza, we've done a couple different things.
Right.
By the way, sometimes we're just doing snacks, and then when we provide food, our numbers go up by about 40%. So the way we try to do this is, and again, guys show up, and then what we find is they want relationship. So we start doing these monthly gatherings, and we do a little bit of food or maybe some dinner, and we put out round tables, and we have to give them content. We need to give them something. And so we teach on a topic, right? We want to know what the next step is in being a man of God, in doing what I need to do, in raising my kids, whatever it is. We give them some content. And a lot of time it is then around tables, but we give them a little bit of structure. And so our general rhythm is a little teaching, a little discussion, a little teaching, a little discussion. And every time with teachers and pastors, they like to hear the sound of their own voices, right?
I do.
Let's
It's
give you a
my favorite
microphone and
voice.
let's just keep going. So every time that one of our teachers has gone longer than they should, and they end up we're there for about an hour and a half. If you take more of the time to teach and not enough time to discuss, those are the days I get complaints, right? In my email box, in person. Hey, what the heck? We were supposed to spend more time together. Now we've started asking them as we go back, hey, we're going to move into the next section. Do you guys need another minute? They've never said, yeah, everybody's done. We want to stop talking now. Every time they want to keep going.
Right.
But we've created a little bit of structure. We've created an entry point. We've created a safe environment to start doing this. And that's still just a step. It's just still putting your toe in the water. But it's, as you mentioned, beginning to create an environment where this starts to become safe. This starts to become normal.
Yeah.
And we're giving structure, we're giving content, we're giving questions, we're guiding through the process. But the final key that we can't always control is you then have to choose. You have to choose for yourself. Yeah, I'm actually going to take this step.
Yeah.
And it helps when somebody goes first,
Yeah.
right? So whether that's from the stage, and I've done that myself. I literally had a moment just 2 months ago. I was teaching that month. And had a moment from stage. I went, honestly, I put this story in my notes, but it's embarrassing and it's uncomfortable for me, so I wasn't going to share it. But I know I need to. And that's where we went.
Yeah.
And so I talked about my own struggle through pornography. This is where I went. And that models what this actually looks like. And so we do this from the front, and then we do this in smaller groups. So when one person in the group goes first, that's where we're going to start. I'm going to open up, and then that vulnerability shows everybody. And 12-step programs and AA, they figured this out a long time ago. You show up for the first time, you're nervous, you're scared, you don't know what this looks like, and a couple guys share their story first. A couple people share their story first, and you learn, hey, they shared that and they didn't get rejected. They shared that, and they're accepted. They didn't get ridiculed. That's okay to share that stuff here. All right. And then another person shares their story, and the same thing happens. And finally, you get up the courage to go, okay, this is what I'm going through. This is why I'm here. Yeah. These are my dark secrets. But you've seen other people share theirs and be accepted.
Yeah.
And you learn, this is a safe place to do that. I don't know that I've experienced that before.
Well, and my thing is we're also not just cultivating areas that I call it an emotional smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Like, here's my
And
life.
dump everything on everybody.
And have I earned trust? Have you created a place that's safe? Yeah. Is that I am a big, confidentiality group covenant stuff. And tomorrow morning I meet with a group of guys I meet with every week. They know everything about my life.
Yeah.
And in that, there's challenge. There's like, Rob, think about this. Yeah. There's, we got you. How can we help? There's rebuke, there's correction, there's all of those things that happen. Man, and yet so many men don't have that. Yeah. I mean, so many men don't have that. The reality of 50% of men report that they have not had a vulnerable relation or a vulnerable conversation, an open, honest conversation with someone in the last week. Yeah. 50% of men are talking about how lonely they are when they're asked. Yeah. 80% of the suicides in the United States are from men. It's 4 times that of women because isolation, of being isolated.
We see that especially here in Colorado. I mean, just a couple miles from here is not only are we known for especially student suicides.
Right.
It's very common here. But we're a stone's throw away, just a couple miles from here is Columbine High School, where the beginning of the era of mass shootings began. Yeah. And this stuff continues because we don't have anybody. I think that's the real beginning of it. So we talked earlier about what's the real price, what's the actual cost of not having relationships that you trust. And it can get that bad. It can get to the point of suicide. For a lot of us, it won't get to that point. It's just less fulfilling relationships. Yeah. It's struggling privately, struggling quietly when nobody else is looking.
The Henry David Thoreau, living a life of quiet desperation. Yeah. And the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. And he wrote that, 100 years ago. Yeah. It was like, whoa. Yeah. And unfortunately, in those environments, in online environments, in gaming environments now, there are predators there who will help you, will be there for you, and twist your mind into go do this, go shoot that guy, kill yourself. Like, that is a dark, dark, dark place. Yeah. And yet we've been made for so much more. And so I'm glad that you're working to create environments like that. The flip side of that spectrum is, or the other end of that spectrum is trying to micromanage what I call adult play dates. Yeah. I'm here to do everything. I am the cruise director in your life, and you don't have to do anything. What you're saying is we're creating environments that have the ability to go deeper, but people need to want that. We can encourage that. We can model that. I can share my story. But, man, you've got to take that next step.
You have to choose that for yourself. Otherwise, no change ever happens. You can sit in the most vulnerable, in the most emotional place in the world, in the most trusting environment, safe environment to truly be who you are and be honest with yourself. And if you choose not to engage, there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah. And you never change.
Yeah. That's fantastic. We're going to come back and we're going to talk next about one thing that you can do this week to help move yourself along that spectrum. Don't go away. We'll be right back, okay?
Does your sermon only get one squeeze? There's probably more juice in that sermon. ReSermon repurposes sermon content for optimal ministry impact. Learn more at resermon.com or email hello@resermon.com.
We're back with Matt Winter from missionhillschurch, and super excited to have the opportunity to talk with him today. We're going to get very, very practical and very tactical at this point. What can you do to cultivate an environment before you need it? So, Matt, back to your guy that you talked to. Yeah. What are some things he could have done in the previous 3 years? Like, thank God he came to you when he did. but it's 72 hours before deployment. His life is a wreck. He doesn't know if his family's going to be there. He doesn't know if he's coming back, by the way. This is really heavy on his life. What can a man do to build the boat before the flood hits? Right? I love your analogy there.
Back to that. It's real hard to build in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got to start before that. And so it starts really simply. So ask yourself, if something happened right now and you needed another guy, who do you call? So first, assess where you are. If you can't answer that in less than 2 seconds, okay, that's your first step. Who's at least, most of us have these guys around us. We just haven't cultivated the relationship enough. We haven't built enough. We just haven't taken that next step. So most of us are surrounded by guys, and we have conversations like this all the time. We were talking to a guy who was looking for some community, looking for Bible study, and we said, hey, what could you do this day? And he went, no, I can't do that day. I'm busy with this and this and this. And one of the excuses was, well, I can't do Saturday mornings because, I've got a couple guys who always come over and we work on our cars together.
That's your guys.
So you have a community of guys you gather with regularly.
Right.
You just keep it at service level. You keep it at cars. Okay, how do you then take that next step? And in the same way as everything else, we build trust slowly. We build trust over time. Right. And this goes for relationships. This goes for how did you date somebody, right? It starts simply. You don't share everything on the first date. That scares people. You start
It's
slowly.
only going to be one date if you do that.
Right. You start sharing a little bit more, and they reciprocate, right? And if they don't reciprocate, if they're not willing to go there with you, okay, maybe that's the way you evaluate that they might not be the right person, right? We're not just looking for service friends. We're looking for safe people. That's the step we're trying to take. And so, we do this with everything. To use a little more innocuous example, we're kind of doing this with AI right now, right? Building trust, right? So I'm doing this. I start a chat and ask a question, and it gave me a decent answer. All right, let me ask it a little harder question. And I try it again. At this point, I'm using it, and I'm actually going, I got to the next level where I want you to edit some actual documents. But that was scary. That's giving it more access, right? I want to be careful. So I created a test. I put a folder, some fake documents in there with some basic content, and said, okay, organize this for me. Organize it in these categories and create a log of everything you do so I can double check it, right? And we're real slow. Right. And I checked every spot. Okay, you did a good job. Let's try giving you access to one more thing. Right. And slowly we build that. And again, we're used to this. We do this in every other area of our lives. But for some reason, when it comes to relationships, we just stop shy. We stop just short of going, hey, I could use your help with something. One of my friends, I don't think I've ever told him the way he started to build this with me. I was a new dad. My daughter had been born a year, maybe 2 years before. So I think she was a year old. Yeah. And he was having kids. And he comes to me one day and he goes, hey, I just put the car seat in my car. Kid's about to be born. I just put the car seat in my car, and according to the instructions, it says it shouldn't move around as much as it is. And I don't know if this is right. Could you just come check it for me? Right? Simple question. What actually caught me off guard is this is the kind of guy that I go to with those questions, right? He's better at construction than me. He makes decisions faster than me. He's more confident than me. He's the guy I would go to and go, yeah, if anybody knows what they're doing, I'm going to go ask you. Yeah. And he asked me. And it set the example, again, very small way. Hey, can you check this car seat? I don't want my kid to be unsafe. Yeah. I haven't done this before. But he felt safe enough, and he built that trust with me just to go, hey, I don't know. Can you help? And it was a tiny, tiny vulnerability that he showed. Yeah. And honesty. And I went, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to help. Right. Right. And we responded to that, right? We love to be the hero. Right. We love to help. We love to jump in. Yeah. We love to rescue somebody from whatever's going on. So when somebody asks you for help, most of us want to say yes. We jump at that chance. Yeah, I'd love to help. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. You feel good. And all of a sudden that starts to build a little bit of reciprocity. Okay, you helped me with, or I helped you with that. Would you now help me with this? Right. And we, again, slowly, step by step, start taking those steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of have to figure out what level of is my relationship with this person, right? Who do I want to be my 2 a.m. guy?
Right.
All right. Look at your current pool of friends. Who do I want to be my 2 a.m. guy?
Yep.
What's the next level of question you can ask him? Do we only talk about sports? All right. Ask him one question about his life,
Yeah.
about his relationship, about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's always the joke. You've got a couple, you and your wife have a couple friends, and you and he go golfing together. You come back home, and your wife asks you, how is everything? Like, I heard they're getting a divorce. Like, their marriage is terrible. What's going on? He goes, and you go, he got a new 9-iron.
Right.
Because you didn't ask.
Right.
Right? And we won't share unless you ask.
Yeah.
It's little steps, but you do have to build it over time.
Yeah.
You don't. Noah took 100 years to build the ark, and it started with one board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start with one board.
So some men are more bent that direction.
Yeah.
I have a feeling you are. I 100% am, man. I'm like, where are my guys?
Yeah.
You know, and I've traveled in a pack since I was a kid, you know, and I've always had men in my life. I've also had older men in my life that I've reached out to, and I'm like, hey, can we grab coffee? Can we do this? So some men are more bent that way. Others are more independent.
And I'm actually on the independent side.
Okay.
Junior high, I didn't have any friends, moved schools, didn't want to make friends. I was clinically depressed in 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
And it took friends that I met playing sports together who invited me to their church to pull me out of that.
Yeah.
That's actually my bent. We
Yeah.
were talking earlier at lunch before recording today about some changes in career path. So I actually, instead of working in ministry, I wanted to teach initially. I wanted to do a PhD. I wanted to teach. And one of the ways that I realized that wasn't the right path for me was I realized that I was actually hiding behind teaching because it was more logic. It was more academia. I could actually hide behind that instead of jumping into relationships because ministry is a lot messier. Real relationships are a lot messier.
Yeah.
That's why our tagline at Mission Hills is real, messy, new. Some of that's aspirational and some of that's truly happening.
Right.
But we want to push into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be messy. And that scared me more than trying to do a PhD
Yeah.
because that's how scary relationships were to me.
Absolutely. They are. They're messy. They're tough. What if I say something that, you know, is, oh gosh, you take it the wrong way. I've offended him. I need to ask forgiveness. What if he doesn't forgive me? What if he spreads it to somebody else? I mean, it's all of that stuff. And
It's risky.
yet it's how God made us, you know? And so the 2 a.m. guy, who's the guy you're going to reach out to when it is hitting the fan in your life? Man, I want to ask you, we always end the next stage with that one thing. What is that one thing that you can do other than listen to this and going, oh yeah, that's great, you know, whatever, check. What is the one thing you can do to cultivate essential, life-giving relationships in your life? What is one thing that you can do? Maybe it's, like Matt said, the guys that you just are hanging out with. You're just working on cars or motorcycles, or you're a lacrosse dad or a volleyball dad or whatever, and maybe it's just one guy that you're like, man, let's grab a beer, let's grab a coffee, you know, what's going on? And God knows at club tournaments, you've got all day to have a decent conversation. So what is the one thing? And Matt, I want you to think about one action step that guys can take. And I'm going to plug real quick what we're doing with Sherpa. Go to sherpaunlimited.com/ascent. They're Ascent men's communities. They are places where you can get in community with other men. They're online. They're easy to access. But I want you to go check out that page, sherpaunlimited.com/ascent, and think about, gosh, how would my life be different if I had somebody that I could call at 2 a.m., that I could reach out to? Matt, what's the one thing that a guy could do here? Maybe it's plugging in. Maybe it's going to your website. Maybe it's whatever. What's one thing that a man could do to put this into action? to have men there when you need them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is exactly what we do. People come to us constantly. These are the conversations I have every day. Men go, hey, I want that relationship, whether something just fell apart or I don't know what steps next. I want that relationship, but I don't currently have it, whether that's a mentor, whether that's other guys to be around. So we can help you with that. So visit us. If you're in this area, we're in the Littleton area. If you're in this area, visit us, missionhills.org/men. Come to our next men's gathering. Join a men's Bible study. Call me. I'll set you up with a mentor, somebody who's older. One of the things I'm learning from younger guys is they want an older guy in their life. We started doing some focus groups, learning a little bit more, confirming what are guys actually looking for. And younger guys want someone older. Yeah. A lot of time it's not that one-on-one relationship. It's I just want somebody who's kind of my dad's age in my life, who I trust and can ask questions. Great. We can help you with that.
Well, and you just hit probably my most passionate point is Gen Z. There is so much going on with Gen Z. Like Gen Z men are coming to know Christ, and it is amazing. And my question is, who are they learning from? And so you older guys, you boomers, I'm a Gen Xer, you millennials, some of us have been asking God to do something like this in our lifetime. He is doing it. And now they're in their 20s. Like they're out of school. They have jobs. Initiate a conversation. Reach out. Be that guy to go, Matt, hey, I could see, man, there's something in you that's going on. Can we grab coffee? Like maybe that one thing is you taking initiative and just getting out there instead of hanging back or hanging with all your old guy crowd. Gosh, being a part of other men's lives. So critical.
And go meet them. Go meet them where they are.
You go
to the places they are. Don't say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Why don't you come over here with me? Take them out of their crowd and their safe comfort zone. You get out of your comfort zone. You go to them and say, hey, what's going on in your life? How can I help?
Yeah.
What are you struggling with right now?
Or, hey, I'm playing in a pickleball tournament. Yeah. And you're like, I don't play pickleball. Okay, great. I'm going to that game.
I'll learn.
I'm going. Yeah. I'm going. So, gosh, thank you so much. Men, the big idea that we're hanging this on is simply this, that it's really the core issue of who is in your life. Are you cultivating a community of men that are there when you need them, before you need them? Gosh, are you doing that? I would challenge you. I know Matt, that's what he does. So thanks for joining us, man.
Rob, it's 2 a.m. Who's your guy?
My guy is Bart Lilly.
Yeah, mine's Will Bishop.
Yeah, probably one of my brothers as well, because it's 2 hours different. They're ahead of me. Yeah. So it's 4 a.m. Yeah. Mike or Joe or my dad are probably up. Yeah. So there's a small group of us.
Start going through the list. Okay, how long is that? If you have that guy, how long is that list? How long does that keep going?
Yeah.
I realized I'd taken one guy off my list because he lives in Germany, but that actually probably works really well at 2 a.m.
It's probably a good time for him.
My pool of people is bigger than I think. Those guys are probably already in my life.
Yeah.
Start there.
Right on. Great place to end. Men, may you be men of purpose who cultivate a band of brothers around you who are there not just when you need them, but before you need them. Thanks for joining The Next Stage, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for joining us for the Next Stage podcast for men with Rob Stout. The Next Stage helps a man live with purpose, born out of his identity as a man made in God's image. The Next Stage publishes every other Wednesday morning by Sherpa Unlimited Coaching for Men based in Denver. Learn more at sherpaunlimited.com. We love feedback. Please send your feedback, questions, or requests for future content to thenextstage@sherpaunlimited.com. The Next Stage taps the wisdom of the ancient scriptures, and if you don't have a copy of the Bible, you can check one out at your local public library, buy one at your favorite online store, or download what is called the YouVersion app to your smartphone. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.